Happy Saturday. Welcome to the weekend and welcome back to our podcast conversation entitled Seasons. This is Father Mark, and this week we have peered into the season of waiting. Being encouraged on Monday that every season has a beginning and an end. On Tuesday, we talked about the season of waiting has a very particular personality. We also learned this week what we can learn about life and ourselves in the season of waiting, what it wants to accomplish in us. And yesterday, we talked about the importance of remaining still so that God can find us in a season of waiting. Well, that's important because as we know that every season usually has with it something to discern, the temptation often when you're in a season of waiting is to discern something so that you can get out of the season. And I want to remind us all that discernment is not necessarily asking God to bless our decisions. Discernment authentically is going before the Lord and asking Him, what is it that He wants for us? Sometimes discernment can be a discernment within the season. So let me give you an example. I found myself personally in a season of waiting several years ago. And as I was waiting for a door to open, I was waiting for change to happen in my life. I was beginning to learn more about how I handle waiting. I get frustrated. I tend to grasp more. I might cling more to sin, like gluttony, to help me kind of forget about the season of the waiting. I wanted to get out, and I was tempted to make some big decisions in life. And instead of making those big decisions, which we'll talk about in a second, the Lord actually asked me to discern within the season how I was responding. In other words, the Lord wanted me to make a decision inside a season of waiting rather than to make a decision to get out of a season of waiting. Oftentimes, when we are in a season of waiting, the decisions that we make to get out are not coming from God. They're coming from the restlessness, you might say. They're coming from the places in our heart that want to get out of the place that we're in. Or we are tempted to believe that if we make decisions, then that might actually facilitate the end of a season of waiting, and that can be equally as dangerous. Most important thing is that as we are in a season of waiting in particular, that we remain focused on God's voice rather than anything else. That's why yesterday when we talked about finding God, we talked about the importance in a season of waiting of retaining your spiritual exercise, keeping your heart focused on the discipline, going to Mass, praying on a regular basis. And we want to continue to do that so that we're hearing the voice of God, so that we can trust not only what we're discerning, but the voice that is leading us in the discernment. Just want to offer a word of encouragement to all of us today who might be in a season of waiting to not make big decisions. And if you find yourself tempted into big discernment, to make sure that it's the voice of God that you're listening to more than anything else. Which brings us to tomorrow. Tomorrow on Sunday, we're going to talk about a new season, which is the season when you can't hear God's voice or you can't find God with you. As we were looking at the feedback that was given to us through the blog, a lot of us out there are in a spot, whether you're in a good spot or perhaps in a spot where you're struggling, where you just can't hear the Lord. And then we go through seasons, which St. Ignatius would call spiritual desolation. We go through seasons when we can't hear God, and that's what we're going to unpack next week. So come on back tomorrow as we introduce that. Be patient with yourself if you find your season in waiting. Enjoy the weekend, and God bless you.